guys, and welcome. This week we're going to talk about the element of value. So, what exactly is value? Value is the range from light to dark. Value helps transition a flat shape to a shape with form. And lastly, value has contrast. The greater the contrast between light and dark, the more visible and dynamic the object or image is going to appear. So, what is value scale? Value scale is a gradation of color from white to black. Tint is created when you add white to a hue to lighten it. The color feels calmer and quieter. Shade is when you add black to the hue and you darken it. If you look below at the squares, you'll see the gradation from light to dark. Now let's talk about some types of drawing techniques. So there's stippling, which is when you are making small dots all over. Scrumbling, which is the circular motion. Shading, when you're just taking your pencil going back and forth. Smudging, when you use the blending tool. And cross-hatching, when you're crossing your lines. If you look to the right of the page, you'll see the light source hitting the sphere. So you'll see in the sphere a highlight, then it goes to a midtone, the shadow, a reflection, which is a lighter shade, and then your cast shadow. That's how you turn a circle, a flat shape, into a shape that has form. Now you should have notes in your sketchbook that looks like the following. Keep in mind this is art class and you are graded on how creative your sketch notes will look. So now starting at the bottom, you are going to create your own gradient. So as you can see, I'm starting with a little bit of a lighter shade after my white. From there, I'm going to my midtone. So I'm going back and forth. I'm using more pressure on my pencil, pressing down harder on the paper. So I did one, and then I'm probably going to go over it again just to make it look a little bit darker. After that, I'll continue going darker through each of these boxes until I have a gradient that starts at white, the lightest point, to a darker shade. So to repeat, basically in this entire process, I have just been pressing down harder on my pencil, giving more pressure to the paper to make each square darker than the other. Make sure you clean up your sides, erase any other extra details. Now we're going to go on to another gradient from light to dark, another value scale, but this time we're not even going to have the lines in between the boxes. Now I want you to practice going from white to a lighter and apply more pressure going down to get a darker shade. This is another value scale, and after you're done, you're going to use your blending tool to blend it all together so you don't have those lines between each section. Again, make sure you're keeping everything nice and neat inside a thin rectangle that you've drawn on your sketchbook paper, and then use the blending tool to blend in all your pencil marks to give your gradient that light to dark look, and so that it doesn't look like any broken pencil lines are making it look sectioned off. On the next page of your sketchbook, you're going to do some value practice. So sketch out a circle, a cube, and a cylinder. In your circle, designate an area that will be the highlight of your circle. So that will be where the light is hitting it to be a sphere. From there, you're going to start gradually doing lighter shades around the highlight and then getting darker towards the bottom of the circle. That way, it will give it a nice gradient effect. When you get to the edge of the circle, make sure you include that reflection that's a lighter area before you do your cast shadow, which is going to be the darkest shade that you're going to do for the entire sphere drawing. If you notice, as I'm working and drawing out my sphere, I'm using my finger to blend in the pencil marks. You can use a finger, Q-tip, tissue, anything that you feel more comfortable with, even the blending tool. For me, it's just easier to switch from the pencil to my finger and continue going. Again, you're going really dark, closer to the bottom of the sphere. So that looks like a little bit of a lighter shade, but I'm going to go over it again with my pencil. Notice how I'm not like just going back and forth. I'm trying to follow the curve of the circle as well to give it a more sphere-like shape. If you go out of the line of the circle that you created, just make sure you erase any of the smudges on the outside of that line so you do have a perfect circle. So now you see you have your gradient around your highlight area going from light to dark. And now at the edge, I'm going to start making a reflection line so that I have some contrast between my cast shadow and the sphere. My cast shadow goes at the bottom of my sphere, and that's going to be my darkest shade that I'm using. Notice how, again, I'm still following the curved lines. I'm not just scribbling back and forth. I'm not pressing down really hard with my pencil. I'm just scraping it back and forth and shading it all in. You don't want to press down too hard with your pencil because then you're going to have really harsh lines and it's going to be very hard to erase those lines or even blend them. You're going to continue using value in each of these shapes to help create its form. So here I go again, making my reflection. So you have your highlight, your reflection, your middle tones, your darker tone, and your cast shadow in there. Next up, we are doing the cube. So on the top of the cube, that's going to be where the light's hitting it, so I'm going to make that section light. The front part is going to be a mid-tone, and the side is going to be a dark tone. Again, I'm using my pencil very lightly. Notice how I'm holding my pencil. I'm not holding it how I normally would if I was writing something, but I'm holding it closer to the eraser. Then again, I'm using my finger to blend everything in. Also, when you're working with the cube, notice how I'm using my pencil in the direction I'm using it for the shading. So on the top, I went back and forth. In the front, I also went side to side. But now I'm going from front to back, not directly across from each other. By doing this, this also helps create form and show the direction in which you want it to go. Again, erase any extra lines that you have on the outside. And again, so I did my top the lightest shade, the front a mid-tone, and the side a darker tone. Next, we're going to be going to our cylinder. Again, for this shade, you need to designate where your light source is hitting the shape. So I'm starting out on the opposite side of where the light would be hitting it and making it darker. So I'm going from a almost thickish area to an even thicker base to show that the light is hitting on the left-hand side of my shape. So I'm pressing down nice and hard with the pencil to apply pressure to it and using my finger to smudge it all in. Then on the side, I'm just going in a little bit lighter just so that it blends a little bit nicer. It doesn't look too harsh. On the top and the bottom, I'm also going to make it look more curved. Notice again how my pencil is following this shape. It's not just going straight back and forth, but I'm giving that curve to give that illusion to create form on my shape. Again, I'll go in with my eraser if I need to touch up any areas. This is going to be due on Teams, so if you have any questions, reach out to me.